underlying issue here about sustainability, you are gonna have one mess on your hands, and I can't deal with that.
Yeah. So, is there another person coming?
No, I think we can.
I thought saying no, Brian said you.
Leonard, so
yes, okay. Yeah, my name is Leonard Gilbert, and I'm from Lake County, Ohio. Brian Massie is my colleague, and Brian, what I'll do, I'll just kind of let you know what we're going to do here. You talk to the slides as you need to, but basically what I want to do here is we'll give you a few introductions. We also want to tell you about what's happening with the current state right now, and these are the real things that are going on. Then we're talking about what we're trying to move toward, and this is when everybody has a sticker shock. They say, "What are you going to do with the property tax?" We're not saying we're not going to pay taxes. What we're saying is, let's look at other mechanisms and what we can consider to put on the table. And we do know we've asked for some immediate relief, so we know that there's bills out there. We've done a lot of work there, so I've added some things that I found out since then. And then Brian and I just want to let people know that if we are going to work together, and you decide, well, this is maybe a good worthy cause, and even if it's not just this cause, if we need help just trying to get something through, we have tools available to help you do that. Podcasts and radio shows, we're all over the place. So I'll get through this. For me, myself, I'm a southern boy out from Atlanta, Georgia, but I've been a mentor for quite some time. I worked for Ava Dennison for about 34 years, probably longer than that, just retired. And like I said, I graduated from Morehouse and Georgia Tech. And I've been working with John Birch Society since 2009. And that's where a lot of my education came from, because when I went through public education, one of the things that we lacked was civics courses. And I didn't really understand how the Constitution worked. And then people would tell me about Republican democracy. I really didn't have a good functional understanding. But then they took me up to another level, and I started to say, wow, we are really off the rail in the country. So, and I'm also a citizens activist along with Brian, and that's, Brian gave me that logo, but I like it. Citizens Against Property Taxes. So that's who I am. And Brian, I'll let you go ahead and talk a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I live on that old man. College High School and U.S. Army, I'm a business owner, and a mission with this 501c4 called Lobbyists for Citizens. I'm not running for public office. I'm not trying to make money. And in my retirement, I'm just trying to get back to the community. What I do locally is I will use my little camcorder, and we go to all meetings, we do school board meetings, commissioner meetings. I joke around Lake County, we got more awards than Milton Brandon, but I go there. Because I find that the citizens are not aware of how the county government works. So Leonard and I speak throughout the state of Ohio about property taxes, and what really is amazing to me is the lack of knowledge of how the whole property tax system works. Not only by the citizens, but some of the legislators they don't understand it, as I talk to them. We were here, we spoke to the Ways and Means Committee, this is several months ago now, and we also spoke at the committee to reform property taxes. And hello.
That's okay.
You were cards.
I'm Leonard Gilbert, that's Brian Massie. So.
One card for both.
I'm probably going to have to get names from everyone before we leave too, because we're meeting so many people all across the state, I can't keep up with them. And, but it's just for me, as we get information, I'm going to be able to feed information to you so you can see what we're doing, and that way if you want to join in and help, or you just want to communicate some things that you found out that may help us, we want to help you guys too. So,
yeah. What I have found in Lake County is that there are no checks and balances in to prevent excessive accumulation by the taxing authorities in the county. There is supposed to, I'm sure, I'm telling you something I already know, there's a budget commission made up of the prosecutor, the treasurer, and the auditor. And their role is to be the watchdog for the taxpayers to ensure that the taxing authorities are not accumulating millions upon millions. Well, our prosecutor's name is Charles Colson, made a ruling that a Supreme Court decision prevents the Budget Commission from changing any outside millage levies. So once it's voted on by the taxpayers, Mr. Colson says we can't change it. So what has happened in places like Deepwood, accumulated $65 million, Lake Metro Parks, we have $30 million. Our crime lab has got $8 million, and they're accumulating $1.6 million every year, more than they need. And I asked Mr. Colson, who's in charge of the crime lab, and he said, well, Brian, I don't want to go back to the taxpayers for 12 to 15 years. I said, that's not a good excuse, because we're saying go back to every no more than 5 years, because what is happening in Lake County, they're sucking the lifeblood out of the community. With the schools are getting about 65% of their property taxes, and all of the other entities, and specifically with this revaluation, I'm sure you all know about the sexennial revaluation and the impact it has. I knew about this because Auditor Galloway had mentioned this to me over a year ago, and we estimated that it was going to be about 30% increase. So what we did is we determined, based on reports from what they call the Schedule A from the auditor's office, how much each municipality, how much each school and the county would be getting without a vote of the taxpayers. Are you familiar with inside and outside village? I get that same reaction. But when I was speaking to the Ways and Means Committee and to the Representative Owners Committee, I made a statement that I believe that the 20 mil floor is, inside millage is unvoted by the taxpayers. Outside millage is voted on by the taxpayers. And this is specifically for the schools. So as the valuations go up, House Bill 920 lowers the effective millage rate, so no additional taxes would be collected. Except when the inside millage and the outside millage on current operating expenses, if those combined equal 20 mils, House Bill 920 cannot lower the outside millage. So what this has done in Lake County, it's a massive amount of money. For example, East Lake Schools will get $8 million a year without a vote of the taxpayers. Riverside School, which is my school district, they will get $3.6 million without a vote of the taxpayers. The county will get $1.8 million without a vote of the taxpayers. So I try to, when I speak to the commissioners, I try to say to them, we've got to be very careful. We are, so now Lake County, they're investing, they've accumulated so much cash, along with ARPA funding and everything else, that they're now earning $16 to $18 million a year in investment income. So my response to them is, if you're getting that, you got to start giving money back to the taxpayers. They won't hear it. Because it's basically a tax and spend philosophy in Lake County. Now, Commissioner would hear me say that, but that's the truth. And I'm very concerned. When I made the statement before the committee, when I thought that the 20 mil floor was unconstitutional, I was basing it on my readings of Article 12, Section 2 of the Ohio State Constitution. And it clearly says that no property tax according to value shall be so taxed in excess of 1% of true value in money for all state and local purposes. So what that is saying, true value is either market value or the appraised value of the property. And say 1% is basically 10 mils. That's how that is. This whole thing is way more complicated than it needs to be. But I have to give credit to Sarah Fowler. When I was listening to Sarah Fowler on National Gilbert, they had a meeting. She said, no, it is constitutional. And I said, I don't understand. So I looked at it again, and there is a clause in here that followed what I just read. It says, but laws may be passed authorizing additional taxes to be levied outside such limitation. So what that phrase, as I understand it, it gives the legislators the right to create a 20 mil floor, and also for joint vocational schools, they get 2.0 mils. That's the maximum that they can get, but that is not subject to House Bill 920. So and it's outside village for the joint vocational schools. I contend that if it is treated like an inside village, it's inside village. I don't care what we call it. So that is my argument there, that the legislature, it's also in the, it's section 5705.02, the 10 mil limitation. Basically the same language as in the Constitution. So I would like the representatives to at least take a look at that and ask, is that really what we intended?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is it really? I really would like the legislators to tell me what is their vision for the state of Ohio. Do they view the state of Ohio to be a state of renters? Is that the end game for the legislators? Because I can tell you that there are some auditors, county auditors, and there are some legislators that have told me directly to my face that if seniors can't afford their home, they should sell their home and move into an apartment. I'd like to know if that's universally thought of by senators and legislators, so that we can convey that to the people. We just would like to know what they are,
what's the position?
what they are thinking of. The concern that we also have with property taxes is the way it is currently structured. We're paying tax on unrealized gains.
Matter of fact, while I'm doing that, I'm just going to I'm going to get to your point when you talk about unrealized gains. Talk about the reality. That's one of the things that the harsh reality that we have right now. Somebody spends their whole life paying for their home. They come up to me. They said, Leonard, I own my house. It's paid for. And I said, really? So I always ask them, Brian likes to ask this question. Well, why don't you stop paying your taxes for a while? Use about 3 consecutive payments and come back and tell us how that worked out for you. Then you're going to find out who really owns that house.
Yeah, we do. When we speak in front of groups throughout the state of Ohio, the first question we ask is, how many people own their home? And probably, 80% or more will raise their hand. And I'm sorry to tell you, you're really renters from the government. Their eyes get real big and they really say, gee, you're right. They never really thought of it because they've been so indoctrinated that property taxes have been around for 200 years, and therefore we have all relied on that to make the whole system work. It's now to the point where unless we do something significant, and rather than just saying, well, what we'll do is we'll work around the edges and we'll increase the homestead exemption or something like that, there has to be something drastically done. We're not saying we're we don't want to pay that. So that's, but we think there's got to be. Now, I can't tell you that the three major sources, being the property tax, sales tax, and the income tax, we did some analysis based on what we could find, is that through the couple reports, there was about $10 or $11 billion that is collected from the local property taxes to fund the schools. So we said, well, gee, what if we said, let's replace that, which is a bulk of the taxes, with a sales tax. Now, no matter what we come up with, somebody's going to complain. We recognize that. There's no absolute, foolproof way where we get 100% acceptance. But it was, right now we're at 5.75 sales tax in the state, and our calculations show about 4.5 additional sales tax to generate that $10, $11 billion that are paid for the local property taxes. So that was, that's some of our thinking. So where we need some help is trying to determine, well, what if we replace the property taxes with an income tax? I know that the income tax seems to be where all the legislators are trying to focus and trying to eliminate the property, the income tax. But what we see throughout the nation is that states are now seriously looking at property taxes, be they Texas, Michigan, North Dakota, Florida is looking at it now.
Florida just joined us.
And we are talking to people in other states. Like Leonard said, we know this is going to be a real heavy lift, but we appreciate the opportunity to at least express our concerns so that you can give us some feedback and say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Can you work with us on this? And we're certainly willing to do that. We're, like I said, we're not running for office, we're not trying to make money, we're strictly messengers. That's all Leonard and I are, strictly messengers, and trying to get the truth. We believe in honesty, integrity, and transparency in government, and we will get the truth out of the people. That's what we'll do.
This is just more of the stuff that Brian has covered about the system being complicated. Trust me, when we try to talk property taxes to people, we're trying to find ways to simplify, to communicate, because it's just too complicated. And the other thing we find out, you can't sustain it. It's just, right now, what has happened is the government has outgrown the potential of the private sector to support it. And so what we're doing, we're basically starving and sucking the county dry. And then you just can't keep on with it. And I was telling Brian about a real situation with Brian. We met this one lady, it's a good friend of mine. And I was talking about the fact that they built this house with their hands, okay? She said, we've been in this house for over 55 years. I lost my husband, so my income is going down now. And she said, I can't keep up with the taxes. Her taxes now have exceeded more than what she was paying for her mortgage. She said, when I want to stay in my house, I want to transfer this to my children because they're willing to come in and help take care of us, whatever the case may be. But she said, at the rate I'm going, I can't do it. So now she's talking about selling her house, trying to move in with her kids. But the kids are running into another problem because now they have limitations on what she can add on to her house. See, it's outrageous.
And what we're also trying to educate people on the housing affordability threshold. That's not something we made up. It's been around, in the late 1800s. A man used to say that I shouldn't pay any more than 25% of my income for my housing costs. The Federal Department of HUD raised that 25% to 30%. So there's three factors: there's the mortgage, the utilities, and your property taxes. If the sum of those three equal 30% of your annual income, that house would be unaffordable for you. Now, if you're a renter, it would be your monthly rent and your utilities. What we're finding is that there's easily 1/3 of the Lake County residents are already at that, and this is before the sex and revaluation that will hit them in 2025. So it could be 50% of the Lake County residents Lincoln's probably represented.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe. But the renters, I mean, we're renters pay 50% of their income. So,
again, you can't sustain it. You'll drive them crazy. The property tax, we talk about this unrealized gains. Somebody comes into my house and they're crazy. Like, wait a minute, how do you know my house is worth that? Well, they got all kind of factors in here, market value assessment. But the reality is, if I never sold the home, I'm paying for something that I haven't gained. I won't be able to stocks until I sell the stocks. So now you're telling me, here's my home, I'm paying on something I may not get the value that you said I'm going to be. So now in the meantime, I'm paying taxes on it. So the other thing is that the third-party appraisal system in some of the local areas, third parties coming in, making the assessment. So you got a third-party assessment evaluating my house, and again, factors we have
controlling our destiny without being accountable to us.
And then the onus is on us to prove that they're wrong. And now I got to pay money to prove that these guys are off base with their assessment. That makes no sense to me. And then we talk about how the government is going, sorry about that. But the government is basically continuing to grow. Brian and I had a discussion over here. We can't even name the departments that are in the government, but there's so many of them we can't even put our hands around. The other thing is, for us, we're saying we want to eliminate the property tax. People freak out when they hear it. How are we going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for that? Okay, well, again, we're not saying we're not going to pay taxes. What we're saying is we got to do some out-of-the-box thinking here. And this is what we got to get people around and say, look, here's an existing system. We know we can't sustain it. What other mechanisms can we use to deal with it? The other thing that we talk about, this whole idea of true ownership. True ownership will drive a capitalistic environment. Now, why do I say that? It's good for businesses, and it's also good for family stability. When we talk about the one person where they're trying to keep their family unit together, but if you start breaking the families up, we consider that to be immoral. When you throw somebody out of their house because they can't afford it, and then they work all their lives to pay for it, and now you're telling me they can't pay for it. So we also want to promote limited government, because what is happening is we're growing so large now, I can't even tell you what agencies are out there. Every time I look up, there's a grant for this, there's a grant for that, there's an agency for this. I have no idea. I can't keep up with that. And then it'll also stimulate economic growth and promote general wealth. I came from a poor environment, all right? But the goal was that every generation would get better from a wealth transfer standpoint. If you own something, that makes it a lot easier to do. But if I'm a renter, and all of a sudden I'm waiting for the next increase, the probability of me being able to stay and own it, it's just not going to exist. So now you just break families up. The other thing about the business situation, and this is something we picked up when we talked about the people from Michigan, when you own something, chances are when a family comes in and they buy a home and they know they're going to own it, they typically will stay there for a while. Companies see and like that stability, because when they hire people, they don't want people just bouncing in and out, because they're going to invest in trying to make sure that they have people that are going to have some staying ability and work with those corporations for quite some time. That's why I stayed with my company for 34 years. I had staying ability. I bought that house with the intention of, I'm going to stay here, rear my family, pay the boys through school, and the whole works. So if I own it, now I can easily transfer that to them, and they can get out of the home and they can keep going. We were fortunate enough to homeschool, and because of that, I'm actually getting double taxed. I'm paying for the public education system, and I'm paying for my education for my children at home, so I'm getting double taxed on that too. No credit at all. As far as the government itself, we got to start talking about reassessing priorities, streamlining essential services, and then doing what I call a realistic budget. Right now, as you stated, Brian, the taxing authorities comes in, the auditor's office looks at it, rubber stamp it, goes. No questions asked. I cannot do it on my job. I've been an engineer for 30 plus years. If I go and ask my manager for $1 million, he will say, what are you going to give me for? I have to justify it. For some reason, when we get the government,
that's the budget commission where the taxing authorities submit their tax budget to the budget commission, and it's basically overstand. There's no questions. In fact, I've taken videos of the budget commission meeting. One was 4 minutes, the other was 6 minutes long. So there's no, well, why do they need this money? And it's a waste of time, to be honest with you.
The reason why we talk about this whole usage thing is because what is happening now is, like I said, my friend, the elder lady that I talked to, she said, Leonard, why am I paying for stuff that I don't use? I said, it's a good question. She said, I've never been to, I don't use that. I never use it. Why do I have to pay for that? And then I said, that's a good point. I like the way Carla put it. She said, would you rather save a book or save your house?
Yeah, it comes down to the question, what's the role of government? Should government be involved in education? The question that's come up, am I responsible for the education of somebody else's child? Those are all questions. Here in Concord Township, you're going to put pass a 3.9% bill, 3.9 bill levy on the ballot for the fire department. And I'm saying, well, normally the fire department, that fits my, I want to pay for safety, police, fire, roads, and sanitation, and water, but I can't afford the 3.9 when the school's going to get, I'm going to have to pay $500 a year for the school. I'm going to have to pay another $100 to the county, and the township, I'm going to have to pay another $300. So it's $700, $800 without a vote because of the revaluation. And now they want me to spend another $700 or $800.
You gotta excuse me, I got another meeting to head off to, but you have my email, Larry?
Yeah, I'm going to get the slide, this stuff, I'm going to get all this to you, and I'm also going to give you some other reading material, stuff like that.
Perfect.
To look at.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found interesting is that everybody keeps talking about, oh, we're going to get rid of the income tax, or the state, and I see, wow, I said, we should talk to Florida and find out how they're working out. And they did that. And everybody thinks it's such a great deal. But what has happened is we're talking to property owners. They said, look, all they did was just shift the burden to the property owners. So she said they didn't really fix anything. As a matter of fact, now we're at the point where you guys are already taxing us out of our own. And that's why he said, well, people are leaving Ohio because of income tax. I said, I think we're going to take another look at this because we're on the ground floor here in some totally different. So we want to get back to a system, like I said, where everybody has some skin in the game. Now, what do I mean by a flat tax? What I mean is that that percentage, we want it to be low. So in other words, it's flat, 4%. 4% of your income, 4%, that's good. You make $400,000, you pay your 10% for it. I make $100,000, I pay 10%. But we all have skin in the game. All right, so we can also say, well, maybe, as Brian talked about a affordable oppression, there may be certain income levels where you say, well, theirs can't be as much because that $30 to them is huge. I got a person right now that owns all the rental properties. He said, when I'm in a very depressed area, I do everything I can to help their renters because they're single moms and their kids trying to help them get through the situations because the family's been torn apart in the U.S. I'm pretty sure you know about that now. And he said, I just got a tax bill. He said, I don't want to pass it on to my renters because I know they can't afford it. We come in they live in a very poor area. He said, I would devastate almost 30 to 40 families. He said, I'm not willing to do that. He said, right now I can absorb that. He said, but I can't sustain it. And so he's trying to not only do something beneficial for himself, but he's also trying to help the community out because he recognized there's a need there. We used to do that when we were growing up too. That's a whole other story. What we want to talk about is where we're going. We know there's a lot of legislation, HB 273, 274, 645. I looked at all of these, and what is happening is it just would kind of moving things around and moving from one location. That's not really fixing anything. We're working on detail for a proposal now. So we want to be able to take this to someone such as yourself and say, hey, look at this, and what do you guys think about it? You say, oh, well, it's not going to work. We need that type of feedback because we got to get some out-of-the-box thinking going on here. The way we're doing it now, it's just not going to work. And our concern is that leaving the mess for you to clean up. That's just not the way it's supposed to. It's not designed to be that way. We, as Brian said, have a responsibility for the next generation to help you because I want to see you prosper and grow just like we did. All right? We got a lot of states engaged now. Michigan, North Dakota, recently Florida just joined with us. And now what we're talking about is actual constitutional amendment. We want, hopefully we can get some representatives that line up with us, but if they don't, we understand that. I'm not asking everybody to believe exactly what I believe. What I'm asking them to do is entertain it, to look at it, and provide input to it. We could be totally missing something that I don't know what's happening on this side of the fence, so we need to know that data. It might help me look at this a little bit differently, but also we can bring data to the table and say, hey, we know we can do this. So ideally, we'd like representatives and citizens engaged in this, but some of the other states, they're doing pretty much a citizen initiative. They're just going out and saying, what we're going to do, we can't wait anymore. So that's why I put down there, we got to get some out of the box thinkers. For those that wish to come on board, when we talk about this, we got tools available, we got podcasts, we got video, and radio, and we want to help promote and communicate our mission, all right? So, not just in this area, but if you see things that are impacting what's coming down the pipeline, and citizens need to know about it, we can help you get that message out. It helps us, and we help you. Because we know also you have to do a job as well. We don't want to be burdens as citizens. We actually want to help the people in government because that helps us. And keep in mind, we're learning and growing as well as we get through this. We have been on this, trying to just get through the whole property tax, understanding this. I mean, we've been on this for quite some time. And I can tell you, when we start having these discussions with people, they're looking at us like, this is complicated. Yeah, we know because we're digging into the data. And with that, like I said, I want to let Brian make any closing discussions or any arguments or you want to add to this. But again, I know your time is valuable. Our mission right now is to educate, educate, educate. And get people to start thinking about the reality of where we are and bring discussions to the table about what we can do to fix it. Again, we're not saying we're not going to pay taxes. Wherever services are rendered to me from the government, I have no problem paying for them. But we got to start looking at the mechanisms for how it's done. So, anyway,
Brian, much wrap it up. Again, we appreciate your time. We really do, and we're not saying we got all the answers. If you can provide us with additional details that that would help us on this journey, whatever we're willing to do, whatever it is. We are part of a podcast team called Ohio Political News. We have a podcast on rumble.com. We do Sunday nights, Monday, basically we do 7 nights a week if we need to. But again, that is another vehicle that we use to get the information out to the people who have guests on. And we welcome any representative, any senator that wants to get their message out to the people, and we've been very active in this. This issue is not a Democrat or Republican issue.
Yeah, look at that.
The issue is bipartisan, where we're all going to be in trouble unless we do something. And again, the true ownership, property ownership, is the foundation of freedom and liberty. We don't want to see your generation lose that. We don't want you to be renters and being subservient to the government. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else on there.
No, this is it. I have these slides. These are just the backup slides. I'll get, if everyone would just make sure I get your names. So if you were here, I'll send you these slides, the PowerPoint, and also I'll also give you a bonus. I have a book that I can send you to tell you kind of why we're thinking like this. I've had the privilege of hanging around some people that really understand the Constitution and what our government should look like. And the more I look at it, we have gone so far off the rail. I think that abnormal has become normal. So when I make a normal statement, people look at me like, what are you smoking? I'm just reading what it says right here. We've lost the content. And the biggest thing that we also see is that the family structure has been torn apart. And we think the government is also contributing to it, because if you don't allow a free market to take place, free market can take place in education too. We did it ourselves. And by the way, how much does it cost now to educate something like that?
In the school district.
Yeah, in our school district, you might be up there.
Yeah, I mean, we go anywhere from 15,000 up to, let's see, usually the school about 46,000.
Yes.
And when you take a look at the money that we're spending on education and proficiency scores, it's way up.
Yeah. And I told Brian, I said, now there's something terribly wrong when I can take $6,000 over a 12-year period and we get 2 engineers out of the deal. There's something terribly wrong with this system. I said, education is a life change. It's not just about, ABCs. It's about understanding life and how to live your life. So I like the fact that people say, well, is life living in the pursuit of happiness? I said, no, it should be life living in the pursuit of a living wage. Because that's if you don't have that, I don't care about all the liberty. The liberty has to drive you, and that's what's important. So that's it. I mean, I really appreciate it. We drove away.
I mean, it just came out, the government, our state government spent almost $1 billion for vouchers to private schools, so maybe take it from there and put it towards property taxes, right? Crazy.
Yes. And you know what's the funny thing about vouchers? And this is what I try to tell people. I like the idea of giving people freedom to choose where they want to go to school. But the thing is, when you're using taxpayers' dollars, it sort of takes away the competitiveness of the environment. Because I can tell you right now, my wife was a true educator, all right? And the thing that she did, my boys were kicking and screaming, they didn't want to do it because they said, well, if we go to public school, we wouldn't have to do this. And my wife said, yeah, that's why we're not going. So the bottom line is that the most critical thing you can do for a child is to help that child learn to think and reason. If they can do that, the rest of it will come naturally. Right.
Yeah, I think, in my personal opinion, if the schools were competing for the children, or the family had the chance to pick and choose where they want to send the children, I think you're going to see much better education.
Oh, no doubt about it.
It's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks again. Now we travel back.